as a security engineer, I need to make security look important for the developers and for everyone in the company. So either uh, you need to show why your job is important inside the company. You need to make your not only yourself but the job you do.
Welcome to the DevSec for Scale podcast, the show that makes security a first-class citizen for growing companies. Welcome back, everyone, to the DevSec for Scale podcast. Today, we have a special guest who is one of our own. His name is Avrahamy, and he is application security engineer at Akeyless, one of our security team. And he has been with us for about a year or so. If I'm right,
Almost.
what do you think? Almost a year, exactly. And we have a lot to talk about. It took us this long just to get to the point where we have a lot to talk about. You have a lot of background to tell us about, and of course, a little bit about sort of how we view application security in-house. So we're going to talk today about shift left developer security and what's so important, why it's so important, and before we get into a little bit about yourself and your background, let's go right into it. So, of course, shift left is a terminology that we are familiar with, but really mostly referring to software development. Why is it that security kind of took a little bit longer to catch up in terms of shift left specifically?
Okay, so I think this is due to the history of general security inside organization. So at first, as we know, there was no security at all in companies and in applications. Um, and when it started, when organizations started to understand it's important because hackers attack them and stuff. They started with basic stuff, with more patching and fixing the issues that they currently have, and that's it. And there was no security in mind or security by design at all at first. And then when security started to be important, so I think that it was first done like by external vendors, like security consultant and stuff like that. And so there was no secure internal security teams at first. And of course, after that, when the times gone by, organizations started to understand that they need an internal security, and they started to build security teams inside. And at first, there were like small security teams, and only I think in the last decade or a little bit longer, they started to build like large security teams inside organizations. And this is only when it started to become to bring other concepts like security by design and shifting left knowledge and stuff like that. So it's just in the recent several years. I can say about my profession, the application security engineer is a pretty new job inside companies. It was not very popular like 10 years ago. There was almost no application security engineers, and also now there's not much. There's like one or two in a company, and in more advanced companies, they do have like teams of 4 or 5 application security engineers, but generally no more than that. So this is why it's only started to take a shape in the very few last years, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it seems like basically the original thought was kind of, work fast, break things, fix them, and then keep going. It wasn't always, let's think about all the external factors that are, could potentially cause us harm, attacks from every angle, and then also potentially internal attacks too, which is a scary subject as well that I've talked about in previous episodes with other experts. So yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting new concept, and it's great to hear that the security side is making that shift as well. So now that we have a little bit of a little up to date, or a little more up to date on what shift left means here in terms of security, let's talk a little about yourself. Roy, why don't you tell us, a little bit about your background, where you came from, and you can give us a little bit more about what you're doing now, even though we kind of know.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I'm Roy, and I'm an application security engineer in Akeyless. I started my way actually as a programmer in the IDF, but right after I was released, I switched to the security field. At first, I was a penetration tester for almost 2 years. And after that, I started to work as an application security engineer in several companies in the last 6 or 7 years. Right now, I'm working, of course, at Akeyless. And basically, my job is to implement various projects inside the company that's related to securing the application and the code that the company produce. So if it's security scans, security reviews, security by design, shifting left knowledge, developer training, and many, many more stuff.
Trying to catch us on phishing emails, all the good stuff,
Yeah.
as it should be. So now that we're talking already into sort of what shift left means, and how we think about it, what would you say would be the first steps to actually saying, okay, now that we understand why this is so important, let's talk about how we attack it, right? Let's attack it from the other side. Let's talk about, being proactive and dealing with this. So how do you start thinking about shift left developer security, when you're actually getting out there and practicing?
Yeah. So I like to think about shifting left knowledge as actually transferring my own security knowledge into the developers. So as long as the developers have the security mindset, there will be less security vulnerabilities in the code in the first place, and then my job will be much easier. So even if the developers won't remember like the actual fix or solution for a specific problem, but they will say, "Oh, this is something that security should be reviewed," and they will involve the security team. It's a major improvement in shifting left knowledge, in my opinion.
Yeah, really got to get the developers involved. They really are. You really realize how central developers are in all of this web of companies, because when you're talking about a large enterprise and a developer is just fixing one item, and let's say putting out a new feature, whatever it is, there are so many layers of security that they need to also know to deal with, or at least have the knowledge what they're doing, right? So like, let's say there are some scans and stuff that they run just because that's part of the pipeline, let's say, but there may be some things that they really should be thinking about more. And part of your job is, I think, to make sure that they have that knowledge and that they're ready and willing to take the extra step to say, you know what, before we release this, let me do a few extra checks here, ask you what maybe else I can do, and things like that before we actually release, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's actually that the real job here for the developer is again not knowing the solution right on the moment, but change the mindset to think like a hacker in some way, or think what did the security engineer my company would say about this code. When you change this set of mind, and don't say, okay, this is the code, everything will be okay, everyone will use it as it's supposed to be used, and you start to think, wait, what if someone will try to do this, which is not supposed to be done? Um, I think this will change everything, because it will, first of all, it will make you more creative in thinking about a problem, and finding more creative solutions, but also make security by design better, because you think about all the aspects in the code and in the actual problem.
Yeah. And that was actually sort of covering my next question, which I wanted to ask about, moving from sort of the thinking process of shift left to actually practicing shift left, right? So if if part of the process of what you're doing is making sure that you're aligning the way that developers are thinking about their code and about the feature and about the potential use cases that they have, and not just from a bug perspective, but from a security perspective. Obviously you can exploit you can exploit lots of different bugs, but I think for the most part, the average bug that you find is just sort of like a slip here and there, something's not working, whatever. But there are some which are obviously much more, leave you much more vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so for your question, like how do I start to practice it actually? So I think there are several steps to be taken. I think the most common thing and the most basic thing is security training, like actual security training, but either by teaching them by yourself, like the security engineer, just teaching the developers, or by actually implementing a training system that they can do hands-on practicing in the system, and they teach the basics of security and stuff like that, or even bring a lecturer to the office for them to again to learn and to practice on some labs and stuff like that. So I think this is the most basic thing, and the most sometimes you even need it to check a V for other vendors that work with you and want to know if your developers are practicing and training. Of course, it's not all for also it's not just for checking a V. It's of course important, but I think there's another very important aspect that needs to be done in order to fulfill the shift left of the knowledge. And it's like more ongoing work from the security team or the security engineer. So I think as a security engineer, I need to make security look important for the developers and for everyone in the company. So either you need to show why your job is important inside the company. You need to make your not only yourself but the job you do important. So for example, if I'm like as a security engineer, I'm using scanners to find bugs, or I do penetration testing, or for example, if we have a bug bounty and we found some interesting reports of actual vulnerabilities in the system, take this vulnerability and demonstrate it to the developers, show them in their actual system that they were working on, and on their actual code, not like general stuff that you need to practice. So this is a vulnerability that exists in the system, and if I was a malicious hacker, I could do this and this. I think this is the most strong, in my opinion, this is the most strong tool to engage. I think the right word is to engage the developers into the security mindset. More than, wow, this is cool. If this is a cool finding, if a hacker would exploit it, it could be bad for the company. And now we fixed it, and it's a very cool and unique finding and stuff like that. But that will actually show them what could have been done and how to fix it, and make them again change their mindset. And next time they write a code, and they'll maybe remember the finding, or maybe remember the thinking that was involved in finding this vulnerability, and they'll ask themselves, what would I do as an hacker? Or maybe I can ask the security engineer, the security personnel, to take a look in this and on this piece of code, and see there is nothing similar to the vulnerability that we found. So I think the engagement is the most important thing, and this is an ongoing work. This is like, it's not a one-time thing. You need to be there always. it's not easy. You need to be very involved. You need to be you need to be on it all the time.
Yeah, maybe the next stage is gamification and giving out cool swag to developers that are showing some extra level of taking greater measures in their code and when they're releasing it and what they're doing. That would be an interesting idea.
Yeah, so I actually very like to gamify stuff and make it not like a chore, but something fun and learning and that you can learn from. So yeah, if we're talking about training systems or stuff like that, so you can make it more fun by making it like a hackathon or tournament or something like that. So, for example, from time to time, do like a 1 day event that you gather all the developers and give them some assignments to like, okay, there are pieces of code and you need to find the vulnerability and how to fix it. And you can have a leaderboard and see who's first and who done it the fastest and who has the most points, and of course giving swags and prizes and stuff like that, and have pizza and beer and make it fun. This is again, I think, part of the engagement you need to do for the developers. And yeah, it's a great idea, and I think that in my opinion every company should do events like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now that we talked about the theoretical and the practical, let's talk about some tools. What are some of the tools that you need, and how do you make sure they're working the way that they should be?
Yeah, so okay, I also already started talking about it. So the security training systems are a great tool for this. You can there are nowadays there are systems that covers almost every language. So even if you have like different teams that use different technologies or languages, you can make every team learn the relevant material for them, and you can track the progress and see who's more advanced in their security learning and who's less. And another great tool is to have like a security champion in each team that can help, maybe help the ones that are that need some more encouragement or more learning, so they can transfer more knowledge or more stuff to them and help them inside the team to to get more on it, on the security, on the mindset, on the engagement. Um, Continuous work, as I said, like gather stuff, gather interesting vulnerabilities and findings, show them to the developers, and maybe even schedule like a recurring meeting, like once a month, to update on the stuff of that the security team done. Show cool stuff, even not something related to the company directly. Maybe even show them, I don't know, something from the news, like there was a breach in a company, and tell them the impact and what maybe we in the company should do to prevent this kind of stuff. So these kind of meetings can be great. The engagement, we talked about the security training system. Um, I don't know, and me be more social, maybe like talk to the developers, maybe even look on their code and review it and ask them questions like, can you tell me a little more about this piece of code, or ask them a security question. That maybe the answer can be, yeah, we're doing this verification and this stuff. It not always need to be something bad. I think this is the tools that this is the basic tools that you need to start the engagement of the developers.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's on top of all the tools that you use just for your own job, for your own purposes,
Yes. Yeah.
which of course we've talked about many of these different kinds of tools,
Yeah.
SAST, DAST, all the different sort of,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, potentially, whether it's proactive or reactive type of tools, passive tools that will help you check just vulnerabilities in general. So I wanted to ask about something more personal. Do you have any sort of stories, anything like that, an experience that you might be able to share with us that sort of presents and shows us how you embraced the shift left mentality for developer security?
Yeah, sure. So even here in Akeyless, we're doing exactly the things that I said. We have, of course, we have the security training system that the developers are using, and they are practicing there. And we are getting very good feedbacks of even some developers, got me like in the office and told me maybe you can open another module for us to learn. So this is a really good sign that people are really engaged from this kind of uh, stuff. Um, so yeah, we're using it. And we also I also perform like recurring meetings to update the developers on stuff, and I like very much to hear like the comments in the meeting, like oh wow, this is cool, like, or wow, this is could be done if it was in the wild, or good thing with that we caught it. And comments like these are very, very encouraging. Um, and also in previous companies, people like reacted very, very good to those assignments, which are not really an assignment. It was more like uh, I won't say fun, but more like a good learn, like a good material to learn.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting. And when it's interesting, that adds a lot to just your feeling towards what you're learning and how you're learning it.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's always good to, I think, come up with interesting material that really kind of makes you think and makes you want to get better, which is, I think that's one of your ultimate goals, to try and make sure that they're always getting better and learning new things. So that's
yeah.
awesome. Now, the last question, which is something I ask all of my guests, is what are one or two tips that developers can use today that can help them be more secure, but also
Mhm.
doesn't take too much time out of their regular job of coding?
I think the best advice, and it's not an easy task, but try to think as soon as possible what the security engineer would say or what a hacker would do. As I already said earlier, and if you have a doubt, like as a developer, ask the security team, involve them. So I think as sooner as the security team or security implementation will be implemented, the easier it will be to prevent future stuff. And I think the most important thing is it will prevent to waste time later on unnecessary fixes or necessary fixes. But as soon as we deal with stuff from the beginning and the developers will write, maybe it will add some time for their development, but it will save a lot of time for, okay, they already finished they already finished the feature or project or whatever, and it's now in production or on staging, and then the security team finds something, and then they need to go back and change the things, and maybe change major things because the security wasn't involved from the first place. I think this is a more significant waste of time than implementing stuff in the beginning. So this is tip number one. And maybe the second tip is maybe as a developer, read more articles in your free time about security, and and breaches in other companies, and general security stuff to change something in your mindset, or even you see a cool article about something and then you think, oh, I have this piece of code in the company that might be relevant, and then you can and then you check the code, and even if there's nothing there, but just checking it and see the stuff. Again, it's all related to security from the beginning, and prevent stuff for in the future. I think this is the best stuff that I can
and share your knowledge.
Yeah.
And share as much as possible with everyone.
I don't like to leave things here. I don't have like a monopoly for security in my mind. I like to, if everyone would think the same in security perspective, I think it will be much more easier and much more secure product from the beginning.
Absolutely. So let's get all those developers thinking more and more about the security side of what they're building, and hopefully all build better, more secure code. So Roy Avrahamy, thank you so much for this interview, and it was a great show, and I'm really excited for everybody to listen to it and hear more about what you're doing and what we're doing. And that's it for this one. So thanks so much again, and to all of the listeners, stay secure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.